at 3:02.
There we are. And
hi!
Yeah, and practically on time.
Heck yeah.
That's
finally.
That's a switch.
I know, don't get used to it.
No. Please don't. Please don't.
Always expect I don't even know what the word is. My brain is scrambled. It's been crazy lately.
Expect the best, prepare for the worst.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking of? The saying? No?
Maybe. I don't know.
I didn't put our light on either, so we're kind of dark today.
Yeah, do we need to turn it on?
I can. Yeah. Excuse me.
BRB.
Yeah. BRB. Sorry.
Oh, but anyway, how was your guys' Halloween? Of course, I'm the Halloween queen, so I need to know. Did you dress up? What did you dress up as? Let me know. Costumes, everything. What did you do for Halloween?
I did nothing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Can't even really remember.
Did you have any trick-or-treaters out here?
No, we never do. We're out in the country, so we never see anybody. I went to church. Sorry, ew. And then, yeah, I think I haven't got a clue. It's been a week.
It's been a week.
It's been a week. So I really, yeah. No, I didn't do anything. I just remembered. After church, I went down, after adoration, I went down the basement, and your aunt, Marissa, and Terry were getting ready for that dinner that was on Wednesday night.
Oh, okay.
And so I talked to them for a little bit, and then I went home and did nothing. Yeah, that's what I did.
Perfect.
Yeah, nobody cares. Okay. On to the reason we're here. What did you do? Did you go trick-or-treating?
I did not. I did not know. I went to church and then I went home. I had some candy left over from the Halloween party, so I just threw it in a bowl out in the front porch because I'm not about to hand out candy to children. And someone came by and literally did exactly what I expected, and they took all of it.
Took the whole bowl?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. And then there were some trick-or-treaters. They were sneaky, though. They were so quiet. I didn't even hear them come, like, up to the porch or anything. I didn't know that they had been there. And I just happened to look out just to see, like, if anyone did happen to stop by. And it was all gone. And there was, like, candy, like, on the ground. And I'm like...
Oh, so, like, somebody just went and tossed the bowl and...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, nice people.
Yeah,
nice.
But...
You know who you are.
Yeah, I'm sure they're watching right now.
I'm sure they can. Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I just did the traditional, like, every year growing up, my family would go to my grandma's house and we would have chicken noodle soup and hot dogs and stuff, like, before we went trick-or-treating. So I made that for dinner and just watched Hocus Pocus.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a good night.
Sounds like.
Yeah, but anyway, enough about our Halloweens in October and all that.
Enough of that. Not while you're here.
No, you're probably here to listen to us chat about The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, our October book club book. It was my pick.
It was Amy's pick.
Yep.
I bet you I can predict your star rating for this one.
I don't have a star rating for it yet.
Really?
I can't decide what I want to rate it. But what do you think? What do you think it would be?
I think that you're wavering between a 2 and a 3.
You know me too well.
I do. Mm-hmm. I bet you I can predict why as well.
Maybe.
That you really like the horror elements, but the language, you didn't like the way it was written.
I was so confused.
We've been doing this long enough, haven't we?
Yep. Oh, man. Yeah. So, if you don't know, The Only Good Indians is about... let's say this group of Blackfeet Indians, these 4 friends, who went off on a hunting trip, which they're calling the last day of the season, which was just the last day that they were all going to be able to get together. And they ventured out onto land that they were not supposed to be on because it was for the elders of their community. And so if you weren't an elder, you're not supposed to hunt on that land. But they decided, since they knew some of, like, the back roads and everything like that, that they were going to go and give it a shot since it was the last day of the season, just don't get caught was kind of their motto. And they ended up finding some elk, which is what they were hunting for out there. And it kind of just went downhill from there. For them. They ended up killing some of them, and one of them happened to be a pregnant elk. And then, yeah, that just caused a lot of bad luck, and they were haunted by that day 10 years later, and might have
Yeah.
regretted doing what they did.
Something came after them
Mm-hmm.
for that day, but they had been out hunting. They found tracks, and the tracks led into this section they weren't supposed to hunt on, and they decided to go in. So they were poaching basically, and they came up to this like drop off, and there was this herd of elk down below. So they were up on a ridge, basically shooting ducks in a barrel kind of thing. And yeah, they all just went ham on this herd of elk and killed what I think at the end it said
9, I
something
think.
9 or 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they ended up getting caught
Yeah, by the game warden.
by the game warden, so they didn't even get
to keep.
the meat
No.
or anything. So yeah. So it was they called it the Thanksgiving Classic because it was the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
This whole whatever they were doing hunting trip turned into an elk massacre.
Yeah.
But so yeah, and then because of that, they ended up 10 years later.
Around the anniversary of that day.
Something came after them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I will say, of all of the supposedly spooky books that we read in October, this one made me scared.
Really?
Yes. This one scared me.
Okay, why? Like, what was it that did it?
I think it was the imagery.
Okay.
Okay, so like at the point where Lewis is looking out and the train is going by, and between, you know how it looks like flickers when in between the cars, when light comes in between the cars, and he was seeing that image.
Yeah.
That was spooky.
Yeah.
That one got me. And
I mean, I think we could probably say what the image was, because this is a spoiler review
is spoilery.
here. So yeah,
I just didn't know if we were going to build up to that
that's
yet
true,
or not, but I was thinking that scared me. And that imagery, the not knowing what was there, kind of like, you know, you see flashes of something, but when you really look, it's gone, or when you look back, it's gone, or and I work at home. My office is in a building separate from my house. I was out in my office reading, and it was night. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And I was just sitting in my office at my desk and reading. And it was spooking me to walk back to the house.
That's awesome.
It really was. So, I mean,
so the book did exactly what I wanted, which was to spook at least one of us.
Yeah.
I picked it for October because it's supposed to be a horror book. I wanted something spooky. So
yeah,
it was a good pick at least for one of us.
So yeah, and in the beginning, the first guy, Ricky, that spooked me really bad. Actually,
I'm gonna be honest. I think the reason it didn't spook me is because I had no idea what was happening most of the time.
Oh really?
I was so confused.
His writing is not easy by any means. I mean, he's not a Riley Sager. I'll tell you that. You do, and the way he writes is interesting. The way he puts sentences together is sometimes a bit unusual, and you really have to kind of piece through it.
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of at least for me in this one, it kind of felt like it was stuff that you needed to already know about in order to understand what he's talking about. Like some of the like Native American things, and also when it came to the motorcycles and stuff, like he was just like talking as if you were already someone who grew up in that kind of community, that culture, or if you grew up if you have a motorcycle, then you already know all these terms. Like I was just so
there was that
by a lot of that.
The first time Lewis left the post office, it took me a minute to figure out that he was talking about a motorcycle.
Yeah, I was so
that confused me. There was another place too. Some of the basketball stuff confused me. Some of those terms. You probably got that.
I was good with that. But it's still, that goes with the whole thing. You just kind of have to have that background knowledge, I guess, to really understand what he's writing about sometimes, which I don't appreciate.
Yeah, it's a little, it's tough, but
I also don't want an author that's gonna write like I'm stupid either.
right.
So he just kind of needs to work on finding that balance a little bit more, I think, for me personally. That way I'm not
Yeah.
like having to try and like Google motorcycle parts.
But it's also kind of authentic to whoever he's writing from the point of view of, because that gets annoying sometimes when that this character would not be sitting there thinking, now this part goes on this part of my
That is
motorcycle.
true. That is true.
They're going to think like that, and sometimes books do that, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, well, did I need to know that? Not really, but okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the animal stuff,
That was so hard.
it
to
was
read.
hard. And yeah, okay, so
Trigger
first,
warning.
trigger warning. Trigger warnings.
Animal cruelty.
Animal death, animal cruelty. Yeah, definitely.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, I think, some of the hardest parts for me to read.
Hmm.
For sure.
And it is horror, so I guess you should expect violence and gore.
Yeah.
I
There's
mean,
just so much, like, it's so
and it's
much
there.
worse when it happens to an animal. Like,
It
honestly,
is.
if someone dies in a book or a movie or whatever and it's a person, like, it's gonna sound bad. I don't care. But if someone's gonna, like, smash in a dog's head,
Yeah.
then I'm, like, over here, like, almost in tears.
Because they don't understand.
I'm not even a dog person, but, like...
Yeah. Oh, and what happened to Lewis's dog? That
dog.
just, ugh.
That, like, made my stomach hurt reading that. Like,
Yeah.
because I was just thinking about how, like, being a pet owner, like,
Mhm.
this like, you're doing something that you didn't even think about, like, could be harmful to them, but something spooked them enough where it's just like, just
Yeah.
having to come home and know that you were the reason that your animal
Yeah.
almost died.
Yeah, unintentionally or
Yeah.
not. But so, oh, you wanna? It was your pick. Do you?
I don't want to.
But I may have understood a little.
I think so. That's why I'm just like, I don't want to lead this discussion entirely because I was so, like, the only time that I understood what was happening was, like, the second half where, like, after Lewis died.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved on to, like, kind of the point of view from the elk woman. Like, that's when I understood the book. So we were well over halfway through before I actually was like, I like this book now.
Uh-huh.
So,
well, I can see that.
Yeah, it was so much
also,
easier to read during that part.
Because I just didn't really like Lewis.
No,
so
I didn't really like Lewis either. And
I was kind of glad when we were done with him.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just very confusing to me. Like, all of his stuff.
So there was the four friends, Ricky, Lewis, Cass, and Gabe.
Yeah. Which it took me forever to realize that Cass was not a girl and was a guy. Cassidy is his name.
Cassidy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the four friends that went out. And so the first point of view that you get is Ricky. And Ricky is at a bar. And he moved away from the reservation. He got a job at an oil rig. And he doesn't just talk events like this. He talked about Ricky leaving the reservation, wanting to go to Minnesota. He talked about what it was like being the only Indian on the crew.
Yeah.
It talked about how unsafe he felt sometimes. So I liked that because I really think that
Ricky's point of view, that part of the book was good too.
There's only one chapter.
Yeah.
But I think those kind of details that he put in there, all those extra paragraphs, it was really to build that cultural outlook, that talk about the heritage and the culture and their experience, which I really, really liked that part.
Do you think that is actually pretty accurate to how it is?
I'm going to assume so because Stephen Graham Jones is Blackfeet.
Oh, okay.
He's from Texas, but he's Blackfeet.
Okay.
So I'm assuming...
I thought that he was a part of the culture, but I wasn't sure.
Because I went to Google it because I didn't want to come on here and rave about how insightful I found this book if it was like total
white author
bullshit, you know? Because I did while I was reading it. I thought, wow, you know. So I did go and Google it, and I couldn't find anything specifically that said that this is really good representation. So again, this is my white girl going on about that. I think it is good representation.
Yeah.
And really, I'm going off on that because he's Blackfeet, and I would assume he would know.
And I mean, stereotypically speaking, like white oil rig workers don't really take too kindly to someone who's not also a white oil rig worker.
Well, yeah, they may not be the most
racially inclusive.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe.
I don't know.
It's very.
That's another stereotype.
It's a stereotype.
So,
it's a generalization, but
I don't know. I've never worked on oil rigs.
In the book, yeah, I mean, it talked about how Ricky got along with them just fine on the job, but then when they would all go into the bar, that Ricky always felt like they were watching him. Like they were talking about there was a line outside to get in, and Ricky went outside, and he talking about how he felt like they were watching him and wondering why he was taking up a place a white man should have, and
and getting to look at the white bartender,
the white waitress, get to So anyway, he was at this bar and doing all this, and he'd gone out to pee because there was a huge line to the bathroom, and he starts like hearing things and getting flickers of visions, thinking he's hearing elk. And he thinks that he sees this elk coming after him, and it's bashing into these cars. It's making car alarms go off. And so he reaches into the back of a truck and he grabs a big old wrench and starts taking swings, but he keeps missing. And so he'll hit a truck. And so all these alarms are going off while he's battling the supposed elk. So, of course, all these cowboys are running out, and he's thinking, he's strategizing in his head what he can do to get away and all of this stuff because there's no elk.
Like to them, it looks like exactly what it is, an Indian taking a wrench to their trucks, to their vehicles.
So at this point, you don't know if the elk was real or if it was in his head. But anyway, he runs, and it's this whole sequence of him getting away, and I really found it kind of suspenseful because you didn't know when he was going to get away.
That part was really well done.
Because they would do these like newspaper headlines and stuff, but like then in Lewis's case, it was like he's making them up in his head. And so you didn't know if the headline at the beginning of that chapter was going to be true or if it was just something Ricky was thinking. Anyway, he kind of gets away, but then he gets stopped because he sees this elk herd, like hundreds of elk blocking his way. So he had them on one side, the cowboys coming up on the other side, and it actually doesn't detail this part, but Ricky gets beat to death in the parking lot of this bar. But the elk have made an appearance. And so you don't find out, though, until then it switches to Lewis. And you don't find out until well into Lewis's part what happened about the Thanksgiving Classic and why they might be seeing elk and feeling guilty. But in the beginning, Lewis is up on a high ladder. There's a light up on like a vaulted ceiling kind of thing. And he has to get up high to fix this light because it's coming on and off for no good reason. They can't figure out why. But he happens to look down, and while he's looking down on top of like a ceiling fan, so the blades are going, so the flickering again, he sees the elk that he shot, the one that was pregnant. It was really too young to be pregnant. It was a young calf or a young cow, and he had to shoot it 3 times before it died, and then found out it was pregnant. So he's seeing this elk laying on his living room floor, looking up at him with its yellow eye, alive. And it freaks him out so much that he basically like falls off the ladder. Anyway.
And then his wife saves him. His wife comes home and literally just full sprints towards him and pushes him into the wall so he doesn't bash the back of his head
because it's over
on
a
the stone
yeah, it's over a
fireplace.
fireplace. So he was gonna hit the hearth of the fireplace.
Yeah.
So, and Lewis is married to a white woman. So that's a whole thing that they talk about as well, which is kind of interesting. So, you have problems there?
Yeah, our little chat box went away.
Oh, hi.
I don't know where our chat
Where
box
are
went.
chat boxes? I don't know.
Weird. Strange things. Well, I guess if you're trying to chat with us, we're sorry.
Sorry. Excuse me just a second. It's Nikki.
I guess it's just you and me for a second. Let me try and fix this. See if I can find our chat box again. I don't know where it went. Okay, well, I still can't find the chat. So if you're trying to chat with us, I'm so sorry, but I cannot find it on the screen anywhere. I guess if you have anything that you want to say, leave it in the comments and we will respond back to you. But I don't want to discuss the book too much more because I want to continue discussing it with Kelly. So, but yeah. Okay. I still can't find our chat, but
Oh,
she's back.
the bites.
Yeah.
Well, a general hello and thank you for being here to anyone we can't see your chats. If you do chat, we'll answer in the comments later. Anyway, what you talking about?
I was waiting for you. I pretty much spent the whole time trying to find the chat.
Oh, were you telling him?
Yeah, I said I didn't want to discuss the book anymore until you came.
Oh.
So. I didn't want to like continue on with discussing it.
Ah, okay. All right. Well, anyway, that's the first time he thinks he sees the elk. And it comes to find out, like, the whole thing about Lewis's chapters section is little bit by bit, you get the details of what happened. Mm-hmm. And basically, Lewis had gone down. The other guys were all down there. They were like basically chopping these elk up and into hunks. And Lewis felt so guilty about killing this baby mama that he promised her that he would make sure every part of her was used so that there would be no waste and it wouldn't have been for nothing. But of course, the fetus, the calf, there was nothing to do. So he buried the calf. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he took his time. He like field dressed this elk. And anyway, the time that he took is probably what got them caught. Yeah. Because when they climbed back up the ridge, there was the game warden just waiting for them. Mm-hmm. And pretty much he gave them, he made them throw all of the meat back, which I thought
that was really dumb because really regardless of whether they had done it illegally or not, it sounded like their tribe, their community could have used the meat. So at least,
and the game warden was the reservation game warden.
Right. So he could have like just been like, okay, you have to give all of it away, like all of your meat away to everyone else.
And the choice that he gave them was basically they could go to jail or for however long. I mean, they're talking years long sentences for this, or they could just basically say they would never get hunting rights again.
Right.
And so they couldn't hunt legally on the reservation. And so that's the option that they chose. So it wasn't about the meat, anything about the meat.
No.
It wasn't like he confiscated the meat. I mean, he should have. They should have. Anyway.
Yeah, it was just so wasteful, and I thought it was really dumb because I feel like a reservation game warden would have more respect for that kind of food. since
would
it
think.
seems like hunting was a pretty big deal
Well, it was how they
to the
lived,
community.
how they
Yeah.
filled their freezers.
So I don't know. That was,
Anyway, Lewis begged to be allowed to keep this little elk and was able to, and so he took it back. He took all the meat and passed it out to the elders that had the actual rights to hunt on this particular piece of land, and then he saved the hide. So anyway, you see piece by piece how this, kind of came out. And as things happen, and it kind of prompts him to reveal more things. And he thinks that he hears things in his house. He thinks he hears not footsteps on his stairs, but hoofbeats on his stairs.
Is just going crazy.
He goes, but he comes home. They have a dog, Harley, and the dog is being a problem.
Well, the dog,
it's untrained. And
well, the dog is what, 9-10 years old. It's an old dog, and he had been jumping up over their fence in their backyard and just like hanging out outside their yard, which for a dog that age who had never done that, like that was just pretty incredible for him to be able to do that. Like no one could figure out why or how.
But they live right next to train tracks.
Right.
So this was a problem.
Right, because the dog could accidentally get hit by the train or whatever. So Lewis had chained Harley up in the backyard to the clothesline or something.
The clothesline so that he could run in the yard and get to different parts of the yard, but he was still tethered to the clothesline.
And he had told his coworkers, he worked for the post office, USPS there, and he told his coworkers about how his old dog had now been able to jump over the fence and everything, and none of them believed him. So they're like, we're going to come see this jumping dog. And so they all go to his house, like in the middle of the day, I guess, to go see Harley and if he had actually managed to jump the fence or like whatever. And when they get there, they don't see Harley in the backyard. They do see him hanging over the fence with the chain still around.
He tried to jump the fence
and he didn't make it because of the chain.
And hung himself. But he wasn't dead.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was like freaking almost crying when I read the part about how like he's just hanging there. Like, oh, it was so like he did such a good job describing it in the book. Like I felt like I was there looking at the dog.
And then his foot twitched.
Yeah. And so Lewis just like falls on the ground because he's just like
froze.
In shock.
He froze.
Like, first off, can't believe that he did this to his dog, and then can't believe his dog's still alive. He's just got too many things. So he just falls down. His coworkers run to go and like help relieve the pressure off of his neck and take the dog down and everything. And they're trying to like kind of nurse him like back to life, I guess, a little bit. And then Harley ends up attacking one of Lewis's coworkers.
The guy that actually drug him back over the fence and was holding him. Harley, in pain, turned on him and took a chunk out of his face.
Yeah. Yeah. So they had to go rush him to the hospital.
Yeah.
And that was kind of graphic too.
It was. It was a little bit. But in the midst, because the more paranoid that Lewis becomes, he starts to think that Harley wasn't trying to get out to go run or find a girlfriend or whatever.
Right. He was trying to get away.
He thought he was trying to get away because Lewis thinks the visions he's seeing are a woman with an elk's head. So he calls her elk head woman. And he thinks that Harley knows that she's there and he's trying to get away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all of this is happening. And Lewis gets it into his head that when this elk was raised or reincarnated or whatever, that it got into a human. And so at first he thinks it's in his wife. And then he figures out that it's not her. And then he thinks
he's just like, it can't be her. Like,
yeah,
he's not fully convinced. He goes back and forth on who he thinks it is.
Well, he does.
Yeah,
he does. But he pretty much comes to the conclusion that he doesn't believe that that's her. But then he thinks that it's this coworker of his who's also Native American named
Shaney.
Shaney. I always read Shandy on that. Shaney. Um, and he's got all kinds of reasons why he thinks it's her. And so he sets up this trap. And he gonna get her over, and he's going to get her in the living room while he's up on the ladder and look down at her through the fan, because that will reveal her true nature.
Yeah.
So, of course, none of it goes right.
It all goes so wrong.
It all goes completely wrong.
And it was just so uncomfortable to read.
It was terrible.
It was just like,
I mean, because then he was trying to, and I had no idea where it was going. No clue what he was trying to do. It was so awkward.
Yeah.
He kept, no, come over here. And you got to see this. And he ends up killing her.
Not on purpose.
Oh, I think it was on purpose. I think it was.
I don't think, there's no way.
Yeah, because he was showing her something on the bike, and he thought if it was running, she had her hair done up in spiral curls that day, her curls would catch. He was thinking that before, and then it deliberately said he turned it on. I think he did it on purpose.
Oh man, I guess I thought it was a total accident. Like, I think he was.
I don't think so.
The way I read it, it was like he's thinking, well, this could happen, but she's smarter than that. She won't.
Elkhead woman is smarter than that.
Yeah.
But she was leaning over, and he deliberately turned it on. He didn't like bump it and have it come on. No, he deliberately turned it on.
He did turn it on, and then her hair was
Oh my
down.
God, that was so ew.
Oh, it was so graphic. It was so like I was watching a movie while I was reading that. Pretty much is the same thing. The visuals that it gave me.
Basically scalped her.
Oh, it 100%
she
scalped
was
her.
alive.
It did scalp her.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
scalped by a motorcycle.
But it like pulled her scalp off.
That is nuts.
Oh my gosh! But somehow it was a strangulator. I don't even know what happened. I just know it was bloody. It was fatal.
Well, I mean, I feel like getting the top half of your head just ripped off would probably kill you, because your head, any head wound bleeds.
Well, that's
true.
So
if you're getting your entire, back in the days of cowboys and all that,
but they used to do that after they killed him. They took that for a trophy.
Always.
Well, I know. Anyway, it was gross.
Yeah,
and it was horrible. And I did not when I read that, I had to put the book down because I was like,
I loved it though. I loved it. I loved it.
I was like, he did not.
He
did not just kill her. Oh my God.
Not that I'm happy that she died or anything, because I didn't have a problem with her.
But of course, it wasn't her.
No. Or was it?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't? Are you sure?
Yes, because he thought he's good now. I mean, he's in the shower, he's cleaning up, he's got time to get rid of her car, he's got a plan to get rid of her body, and then he starts second guessing himself. Remember, he went back out there and said that one way that he could figure out for sure was the teeth, because the canines on an elk are ivory and the rest of them are not, and that's a carryover from prehistoric days. He went, oh my God.
He went and he started ripping out her teeth.
Broke her jaw.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. The way that he broke her jaw.
Just grabbed it.
Sir.
And had a pair of pliers. And it starts pulling her teeth out.
Yeah, and of course they didn't come out easy.
No.
And so he just was having to struggle and put something up in there to try and leverage it out. Oh, did not care for that part.
But of course they're not ivory. There's no ivory.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's thinking that, well, okay, because he field dressed this elk and he basically did a C-section to cut out the fetus.
Right.
That if she was elkhead woman, there would be a scar on her belly. And he was getting up the nerve to lift her shirt to check for a scar when his wife comes home. So he really quick tries to, cover her back up and runs into the
Mhm.
house, and his wife's up on the ladder because the light, that was his thing to get Shaney, was that he would be up on the ladder again, same place he was the first time he saw the elk, and he would get her underneath the ceiling fan so he could look down on her. Well, his excuse for being up there was the light.
Mhm.
And something he did actually made it
Well,
work.
because it was loose in the
Yeah.
can, so he just like stuck his knife up there
Stuck
to
his knife-
kind of like hold it, and that kept
Yeah.
it. It fixed it.
So he comes in and she's up on the ladder. And he's now thinking he doesn't know what the hell, that he just killed somebody.
Yeah.
And
Well, and then he's like going in his head too about how like, oh well, maybe it really is PETA because
right.
she's vegetarian. Elks are herbivores. She doesn't
Yeah.
want to touch the hide on the counter because it's her hide. Like
These
like
are
all
these are the paranoid, weird things going through his head.
Mhm.
That it basically PETA falls off the ladder. And instead of rushing to like body slam her like she did for him, he froze.
Yeah, and just let her fall.
And she fell and bashed her head in. So
And then he just still stood there as she's she's not dead yet. She's bleeding out, dying,
yeah.
and he just stood there.
Well, yeah. He finally says her name and it makes her smile, and then she dies. But then he has to check and make sure. So he breaks her jaw and pries her teeth out. And I'm thinking the whole time, like, dude, you already have one body to explain. You can call and say this was the accident.
Right.
But now that you broke her jaw and pulled her teeth out,
Yeah, this is
how
like,
are you gonna explain that?
That's what I was thinking too. I'm just like, you are now officially a murderer.
What
Like,
in the hell?
And like people are already thinking like you're an Indian, so like
yeah, because he'd had a run-in with the cops
before
that talked a lot, which again I thought was really good. Talked about it from a Native American point of view, much like an African American point of view. You treat dealing with cops, you treat it like dealing with a skittish horse.
Mhm.
No sudden moves, no loud noises, that kind of thing, which I thought was really good. But the officer was being an asshole.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm like, yeah, dude, how you gotta call the cops now?
Right. Like, how do you explain this? Like, this man, you're going away for life in prison after this.
You could have said she fell and been fine, but no, now you broke her jaw open and pulled her teeth out.
Right. So I'm like, okay, what's he gonna do? He's gonna bury these bodies? Like, what is gonna happen?
Yeah, I'm like, because also this is like the middle of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, holy crap, where's this gonna go?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So yeah. So anyway, he pulls her, obviously her teeth are not ivory. And I thought, okay, so I honestly
this part was so weird.
I honestly thought it was a hallucination at first, a delusion based on his paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought it was at first, but he sees his wife's belly move.
Mm-hmm.
And see, they had sex earlier, like 2 days before this, with no protection in the garage. And so he's like thinking,
there's no way.
Well, but then he starts thinking about if it was, because he thinks it's this baby elk being reborn. And he's like, oh, well, from a supernatural standpoint, 48-hour gestation is probably just about right. Where's he coming up with this stuff? I don't know. Anyway, he cuts her open. And it is this baby elk. It's a baby elk.
Mm-hmm. There's like a scene where after he cuts her open, just one little hoof just pops out.
Yeah, so he like pulls it out, and it's a baby elk. So he gathers up this baby elk and runs.
Yeah, just leaves the crime scene.
Yeah,
with this baby elk, and he's running back home to the reservation.
He takes Shaney's truck.
Oh yeah,
for a while,
it like a mile or two away. Yeah. Few miles away, and so that way there's not like questions right away. And he's just going on the run, and he's going back home.
Yeah, he's going back, or he's going to take this baby elk back to the herd. Is what his goal. He is going to keep this little baby, but he didn't even know if it's alive.
Right.
Because he's just carrying it. There's been no movement. He doesn't even know if it's alive. But if he thinks if he gets it back to where it happened, that it'll come back. It'll be alive. Well, he didn't make it.
Oh no, they gunned him down.
Yeah, state troopers, the staties, they gunned him down. But before he died, he felt the baby elk move. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay, well, because I had no idea where that was going to go. I had no clue. To me, you didn't know at this point if he was just delusional. And you still don't know at this point. At least I didn't.
I thought he was just crazy.
I didn't even know. For all I knew, he had a dog he dug up his dead dog or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, because there was a whole scene in there where he's just like, well, my dog in the backyard's all dug up, but who did it? But I'm like, bro, you did it. There was a whole scene in there where you're digging in the dirt.
Yeah.
So he is just losing his freaking mind.
So even at this point, but then at the very beginning of the next section, it starts with a newspaper article about an accident where these it wasn't the state troopers that gunned him down.
No, they were
like
vigilantes.
Yeah. And so they had put Lewis in the back of their truck to take him to town, and there was a baby elk. And they said that when something, I don't know, in the rearview mirror, whatever, they looked back and it was a young girl, a young Indian girl in the back of their truck that they had no idea how got there. And that then she crawled up over the toolbox, came in the rearview mirror, and then basically just like
sat in the truck with them.
I don't know what she did, but caused an accident. And like they didn't survive.
But I mean, like, if you just have this random girl crawling up inside your truck, I'm pretty sure that I would be like, what the heck's happening?
Well, it doesn't say if she started, like, biting into because there was, at the beginning, this is the part where it goes to the elk woman's point of view. And it starts with an elk mother will kick with her hooves. And if she has to, she'll tear with her teeth. And it's like, I don't know what this girl did. I don't know if she was like... Anyway... The report, there was a survivor of the crash, but he didn't live very long afterwards. But he told him what happened. But when they went, there was no baby elk. And, well, how else is a random Indian girl going to show up? So now you're like, oh, Lewis went crazy. Well, at least not as crazy. There was a baby elk.
And that was where I started understanding the book.
And it turned into a girl.
That took me a really long time to get, though, still.
It's like, whoa, anyway, she was like growing really fast. So every time somebody saw her, she looked way different because she had grown 5 years or whatever. But so she makes her way. So this is really kind of a nature gets revenge story. Kind of.
Yep.
Kind of
nature gets revenge on man.
So at first I thought it was the baby elk that had, but it was Mama.
It was the mama.
It was Mama coming back for revenge.
Yeah, because they took her baby away from her.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's only 2 left, and she's going after them.
Gabe and Cass.
Gabe and Cass.
Cassidy now, because that's what he likes to be called different things.
He
either goes by Cass or Cassidy or Cash or whatever.
Yeah, he changes his name fairly often. But yeah, she goes after him, goes after them. And
she goes after them.
Yeah.
Big time.
And these 2 are still, well, Gabe is still a screw up. They were all a mess when they were younger. But Gabe's still a screw up.
Yeah.
Cassidy's
alcoholic,
getting himself together.
Father.
Because Cassidy found a girl, and she was kind of keeping him on the straight and narrow.
Which is kind of funny because she wasn't even from, like, he was Blackfeet and she was Crow. So those two didn't typically tend to intermingle. They were
Yeah.
kind of like
Ancestral
enemies.
enemies.
Yeah, so, but she settled him down big time.
Yeah. So things were kind of on a track for him, but Gabe had been, I don't know if he ever married Trina.
I think
Were they married?
maybe not. I don't know. They were
Anyway,
together.
it said like they had a daughter,
Mhm.
and he basically screwed up. And so he wasn't really allowed to see his daughter very much, Denera. And she was like this star basketball player.
Mhm.
So now we're seeing the I mean, basketball's been throughout this thing,
Yeah.
which I didn't really understand that until I went and Googled some things and read some articles afterwards. And that apparently, especially in like these Wyoming Blackfeet reservations, basketball is huge. Like Texas high school football kind of huge.
Oh,
It like means the world to these people.
I
Supposedly,
did
from
not
what I
know
read,
that.
I got that online, people. I'm not saying I'm an authority on this in any way. I read an article, okay? So anyway, that's why the basketball was
Okay.
all over the place.
That makes sense. I liked it though.
Yeah, well,
I enjoyed
yes.
the basketball.
Miss Basketball over here. So that's why. But she was like a really, really good,
So
like
good.
headed for college scholarship.
Oh, for
Big
sure.
time.
Like full ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, but he wasn't really allowed to be around her because he drinks. He's a drunk, and
He's a bad influence.
yeah,
He has anger management problems.
makes a scene wherever he goes. And it doesn't help that Denera's mom married the game warden.
Yeah.
So Denera's stepdad is
the one that busted them 10 years ago.
Denny Peace, the game warden. So that doesn't help.
Yeah.
But anyway, but Cassidy's getting himself back. So one of the tribal police officers has a son that's kind of a screw up. And
he thinks of himself as like a little gangster.
well, but he's been stealing and doing drugs, and you know,
he's not on the right path.
He's going down the wrong path. And I really appreciated too the way that Stephen Graham Jones pulled the whole culture in and it was just really good. I thought, as the white girl sitting here, I thought that I read something that helped me to understand the culture of this tribe. And I hope I'm correct. I really do. From what I read, it is. I do. But anyway, there was a whole culture bit. But Cassidy and Gabe were going to host a sweat and have this would be Nathan's first time. And his dad, the police officer, Victor, was hoping that it would help him kind of ground himself in more tradition. And well, like Gabe and Cassidy kept saying, you go in there and you sweat it all out. You sweat out
like
all the guilt, all the stuff,
process.
and you come out feeling new. And anyway, they were doing this. So there was this whole big setup to it, which I thought was really good. And then it came down to, the actual sweat. And it was just the three, Cassidy, Gabe, and Nathan inside the lodge. And Victor was on the outside. He was the fire bearer. Mm-hmm. And so whenever they wanted new hot rocks, he was the one that was to bring them in. And so it kind of set all that up and explained it in a way that I thought was well done. It didn't feel like the author was trying to go, okay, white people, here's how it works.
Right. Yeah, no, I thought it was really well done for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, that all kind of starts up, and this is what the Elkhead woman has been waiting for. And at this point, by the way, she does not have an Elkhead.
Right. No, she just looks like a normal woman.
Lewis called her Elkhead woman because that vision that he saw between the train cars had an Elkhead. Mm-hmm. So she's not called Elkhead woman. But there's a lot of, talk because these guys were friends. And so they were talking about Lewis and why he did what he did. And did he go crazy? And why did he have this baby elk? he was trying to come home. Why was he trying to come home with a baby elk? You know, he's finally trying to come home, and they shot him down, and it was just really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is when it all goes down. Like, wow.
Yeah.
And this is where it kind of lost me a little bit.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, it was good.
It was. I mean, basically, her whole plan was to make them go crazy and kill each other.
Yeah.
I mean, she really...
And it pretty much worked.
She really didn't kill anybody.
No. And that's...
Well, she killed Victor, but...
Yeah, twice.
Tried to kill Nathan.
Yeah.
But her whole thing was she was going to get them to kill each other, Cassidy and Gabe, and almost.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was chaos. Holy crap.
Such chaos.
They were seeing things.
Yeah. Well, they were already a, like, their minds were already a little bit mushy and everything just because of the sweat. They had been in there for so long. Gabe is dehydrated to an extreme level at this point because he's not drinking any water.
And part of it, the preparation is to fast beforehand.
Yeah. So they're already not thinking very clearly after having been in this sweat for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gabe's kind of starting to lose his mind, and he's hearing some noises and stuff outside. And so he's going out, and he goes to try and find something to put water in or something, because he wants to get water out of his cooler since it's cleaner water than the water that Cassidy had, because what he was using to shovel it was like a horse horse's oats.
His horse's oats.
Yeah. So Gabe was refusing to drink water with that because he's like, I don't know what these horses be putting in there. Like, you know, like apparently he has standards now all of a sudden.
Right. Whatever.
So he's like gonna get stuff out of his own cooler, and he ends up taking this thermos, this black and white thermos that he finds in the back of his truck, which was not there before. Mind you, this is not Gabe's thermos. And he takes that into the tent, and Cassidy sees it, and he's like, "Where did you get this thermos from?"
Okay, did you know why? At that point, did you know why Cassidy flipped over the thermos?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't.
100%.
I didn't put it together until later.
Oh no, it said earlier that's okay. So Cassidy had this old truck, the same truck that they had took out on the Thanksgiving Classic, and went everywhere when they were younger. And he had kept the truck up on blocks. Everything that you needed for the truck to run was pretty much out. Anything good. But the truck itself was still there. And inside the muffler or something of the truck, he had this thermos where he was storing all of the money that he had saved up, including a ring that he was planning to give to his crow girl, Joe.
Right, Joe.
He was going to ask her to marry him. And so he didn't think that anyone else knew about where this was. And he really hoped that Gabe didn't know about it.
Well, and nothing... because it was nothing to steal on this truck, so it was the safest place.
Right.
Except that when they were waiting for Victor and Nate to get there,
Gabe made
a comment and
about how I need to put something in his truck.
Yeah, and Cassidy kind of got suspicious that Gabe might know where, and everybody knew Gabe was a thief.
Yeah.
So, and then when they were just barely into the sweat, Joe shows up home early from work and pulls Cassidy out of the sweat to tell him it turns out Shani was her cousin.
Yeah, the girl Lewis killed was her cousin. So she's all distraught.
Yeah,
and
so,
is trying to get to where Shani's body is.
Well, she's going home. She's going back to the Crow reservation.
Right. Because they need to do
they were gonna bury
arrangements and stuff.
And so Cassidy told her, "Let's get you some money. We'll go." And she's like, "I know where it is. Go back to your sweat. I know where it is."
Yes, because everyone in the sweat is naked. By the way, all the guys are naked. Yeah, and there's snow on the ground. There's a lot of things happening.
Yeah. And then, but when Gabe went out to get water, he found Cassidy's dogs. Cassidy had 3 dogs.
Right.
That when Gabe showed up in his truck, the dogs started going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And
one of them bit him.
Yeah. And they didn't really know why. They were just acting up.
Yeah.
Except that, which one was it? Was it Gabe? I mean, it must have been Cassidy that asked Gabe, "Have you been hunting?" Because he saw
Oh,
the black hair in the back of Gabe, like a flash of black hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dogs started acting up and were going insane, and
Yeah.
they got distracted by the dogs.
It wasn't an elk.
It wasn't an elk. Well, it was an elk.
Well, it was, kind of.
So yeah, so when Gabe goes out, he finds Cassidy's dogs dead.
Yeah, all of them except for one. One was still clinging on to life, and it was the one that bit him.
Yeah.
And so he thought he was going to do the humane thing and put the dog out of its misery. Because they looked like they had been stomped on by horse.
They look like they've been trampled.
Whatever. Like, they looked bad shape.
Yeah.
So he takes a rock that's by the dog. He sets his spear down, and he kills the dog.
Kills the dog.
And leaves the rock there and his beer. That's important.
But when he goes back in, he decides not to tell Cassidy because he doesn't want to ruin the sweat.
Right.
So, and he'll know soon enough. He doesn't want to tell him.
Right.
Yeah.
He should have told him.
He should have told him.
Yeah. So he comes back in with a thermos too, and that sends Cassie on a whole thing.
Cassidy goes crazy for a reason I didn't understand until a minute later, because I was like, oh.
And he's accusing Gabe of stealing everything, and then he goes out of the little tent that they had, and he finds his dogs, and he finds the bloody rock and Gabe's beer next to one of his dogs, and so he's like, Gabe killed all of my dogs.
And then he's like telling Gabe to turn his pockets out for the money.
Yeah, because at this point they're trying to put their pants on and everything.
Yeah. And he's like, some money falls out, but Victor had given Gabe that money earlier to help pay for stuff for the sweat.
Mm-hmm.
But in his other pocket was the little pouch that had the ring that was going to be for Joe. And then Cassidy starts to go over to the truck.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
This part was so rough to read too.
It was. Oh my God.
So, yeah. Cassidy goes to the truck to try and look.
And then Gabe follows him.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabe is like this, going on about this old piece of junk truck. And he goes up and body slams the truck.
And Cassidy starts freaking out because right before Gabe had done that, he noticed that they weren't the only two at the truck. Joe was underneath of the truck trying to get the thermos or whatever. And so when Gabe body slammed the truck, one of the blocks it was on broke, and it caused the whole thing to just fall on top of Joe. And Cassie the whole time is like trying to hold the truck up, but he obviously can't because he's not superhuman.
Well, and Gabe tried to help him. And because I think they said it later, if they had been able to hold it up just a little bit longer, it looked like Joe had been trying to squirm her way into the engine compartment.
Because the engine of the truck was out.
Was gone.
So if she could have worked her way to that little hole where the bigger hole where the engine had been, she would have been okay.
Yeah.
But they couldn't hold it long enough.
Hold it long enough.
And so it came and crashed down right into her face.
Yeah, it was like,
skull.
Like here and crushed her here. And yeah.
It was graphic.
And they talked about looking down, like through the hood down, and seeing her eye bulging out. And I was like, oh, God.
Yep.
So obviously Cassie goes ballistic.
Yes.
And there was a gun that Gabe had stolen from his father that he was going to hawk. And they had talked earlier about, what does it even shoot? Or does even anybody have any shells for it? It was like a World War I gun.
It's very old.
And Cassidy had said that he had a whole baggie full of random bullets, shotgun shells, because Ricky, when he left the reservation, had stolen all of his dad and uncle's guns and some shells. But by the time Cassidy got to North Dakota to pick up Ricky's things, the guns were gone. They had already been stolen, but the shells were still there, so he brought it back. So Cassidy starts going through this thing looking for a shell, and he finds one.
And he aims for Gabe.
Yeah, and so there's this whole like standoff, and Gabe pretty much falls to the ground and it's like, do it. Just do it.
Yeah. And so Cassidy does.
Well, sort of.
But, yeah, he misses.
Well, he gets startled.
Oh, that's right.
Because there's like this movement behind Gabe, this like flash of white, and Cassidy startles and jerks, pulls the trigger, and the bullet grazes Gabe's ear, but it shoots into the person that was behind him. And because they're all nuts at this point, when Gabe turns around, he thinks it's his daughter, Denera.
Mm-hmm.
Right before Gabe came to the sweat, he had broken a restraining order and gone to see Denera. And in their talking, in their exchange, he had bet her that she couldn't do 10 free throws in a row. And so he owed her money because she did it. Mm-hmm. And so he's like going this all in her head, and because he had promised her that he would go to her scrimmage game, even though he wasn't supposed to, and he would pay her what he owed her then. And so he's thinking in his head, because she doesn't trust her deadbeat dad, because by the time he gets to the game, he'll have spent it on something else, blah, 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 that Denera came out to the sweat that night because she knew, because Nate was in her class, and so she knew what was going on. She had come out to get her money, and Cassidy shot her.
Mm-hmm. And then now we have Cassidy just driven with grief.
Yes.
Gabe is going ballistic because that is his daughter. Like,
somebody's knocked on my door. You got this part. I'll be right back. You got it.
I got it. Okay, so Gabe is going ballistic at this point because that's his daughter, his only daughter, and she's a basketball prodigy and all of that. And like Kelly had mentioned before, basketball was huge for them. So he starts going after Cassidy and just beating the living crap out of him, and he's taking a rock or a thermos or whatever and ends up just like smashing Cassidy's skull in. His best friend for his entire life, and has killed him. What? And of course, still super graphic on everything, because this book does not want to leave anything to the imagination. We are here, and he's giving you detail by detail all of the gory stuff. Yeah. So Cassidy is pretty much dead on the ground, and Gabe turns around and finds out that it wasn't actually Denera that had been shot, but Nate. He had come out of the tent, I guess, with all of the commotion, and Cassidy had shot him in the stomach. So now we have that to deal with. Victor, the police officer, is nowhere to be found. No one knows where Victor is at this point, where he had gone, because he's missing. And so we got Nate bleeding out on the ground. We got Cassidy dead, and then the Elkhead woman is showing up to talk to Gabe.
Yeah. Did you say anything about how she's been sneaking around all night?
Uh-uh.
She's been sneaking around all night. The whole time this has been going on. And that was creepy.
Yeah, because apparently like the horses had been going crazy. That's why the dogs were going crazy. Like all the animals had sensed that she was there.
So yeah, she was in the back of Gabe's truck. And because he had stopped on his way in to look at elk tracks in the road. And she snuck in the back of his truck and hid under the toolbox. And so she was like sneaking around, and like people would hear things, and it would be from like her point of view, saying, oh, they flashed their light this way, they would see you. And all of her stuff was in second person.
Mm-hmm.
It was so creepy. Like, you are doing this and you are doing that. And if they point their light this way, they will see you. But they don't know you're right behind them. Hi, Nikki. What? Come say hi. What? Oh, nice.
Oh, no.
You want to stitch it for me? I only have 2 other jeans.
I tell you what, come here and say hello, and then we will talk about it later.
Hello, how am I saying?
Hello, people.
Hello, people.
Okay. We'll talk about your
Okay.
jeans later, baby. Okay. Can I have any more interruptions today? I'm not sure. So yeah, it was just really, really
It was
creepy.
super creepy.
It really was. So, and it was like, it wasn't like completely, it would be normally when you see something like this, well, at least when it's not well done, it'd be like head hopping because in one sentence it would be like talking about what's Victor's thinking, and in the next sentence it's like if he shines his light this way, he'll see you, and it's like both sides of it, and it was just made it really, really creepy because you knew what was out there, but yet while you were thinking with Victor, you didn't know what was out there, and wow. It was so well done. That part really was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after Gabe discovers that it's not actually Denera, then he's just like, I just killed my best friend for no reason, pretty much.
Yeah, so he's sitting there. Well, at first, he was thinking about killing himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden he's not. Well,
the elk-head woman comes out and talks to him.
Well, I think, wasn't
Right.
it when he still thought it was Denera and then Cassidy was dead, that then he was going to kill himself, but when he realized it was not Denera, then he was just going to run.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Instead. And then, the woman comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he has Cassidy kill him.
Well,
kind of.
Yeah, she makes him kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
Or she says she'll go after Denera if he doesn't. And oh my gosh, you could just feel it because, he put the rifle under his chin, and he put Cassidy's finger on the trigger and was going to push Cassidy's finger down so it would be like Cassidy killing him.
Mm-hmm.
But it talked about how he was like, you could just feel it breathing fast and working up to it, and just, and then it misfired. And he kept making her promise that she would not, that it was in with him and she would not go after Denera. And then he does. He kills himself. So.
And she lied. Because that she needed to go after the calf just like they went after her calf.
Yeah, there's one left, and killing a calf was about the worst thing ever, so what was a broken promise to that?
Right.
Okay, so and that's where it lost me somewhat. Because I'm like, okay, I get it. I get the whole that they killed her.
Right.
They didn't. I mean, they killed her calf. Of course they did. But they didn't target her calf. They didn't know she was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
They killed her. And so I got her going after them. But I didn't really, to me, then the whole bit with Denera was just, I really didn't see why that
she
had
just
to
got
happen.
on a killing spree. Yeah, I didn't think that was necessary either, because it doesn't make sense to go after Denera if her dad's already dead, because then you're not punishing her dad anymore.
Exactly. If she had gone after Denera first.
And then, that would have made so much more sense. Yes. But the way that was set up is just like, what was the point? And I think it all, just because it needed to bring it back full circle at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I feel like it should have been flip-flop where she went after Denera.
Well,
and then
because it made no sense for her to go after Denera at that point.
Yeah, and the way that she went after Denera, they played basketball against each other.
Yeah, they had
which I mean, I guess kind of worked out.
The vibes of it, as far as it by itself, the vibes of it was kind of a Devil Went Down to Georgia kind of thing. But in the context of the story, I didn't.
Yeah, I don't think that part was necessary.
No, and it was pretty drawn out.
It was very drawn out.
Yeah, with lots and lots of detail. And I get, again, since I read afterwards, I get that basketball is a very important deal.
Right.
But as far as like for a story, I understand that these things are good and culturally important, but they still need to serve your story. And I
Mhm.
just don't think it did.
No.
Except
I don't
that
think it
it was
did
in
either.
Denra's character. But why? Why does this elk woman know how to play basketball so well?
Right.
She's
That
an
didn't
elk.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense,
Yeah, I
and
don't get that. I didn't get that part.
there were so many moments too, like when Denera was running away from the elk woman, it kept referring back to, like, basketball, "Okay, this is the last 3 seconds," and all that, but
Yeah.
it was the last 3 seconds so many times.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, like, it felt a little bit overdone on that,
It
like,
did.
you're trying to be dramatic, so let's just be dramatic once.
Yeah. And it just could have used other references. And I don't know. I mean, I understand it was cold and rough terrain that she was going through, but the fact that she only got a mile or two and she was already like spent.
Right, which for a high schooler or junior high, whatever, who has like consistent conditioning
We have a
for
dog.
basketball,
We have a dog in the room now.
all of
Yeah.
that conditioning for basketball, there's no way that you would be tired after a mile.
Yeah, and
Because I remember when
talked
I did like basketball,
how
and
peak she was. Peak.
Yeah,
Training.
because she did training even outside of practice and everything. So she did extra conditioning on top of her normal conditioning. And it's like when
Mhm.
I was in high school, I could run 4 miles without getting tired. So it's like, how, like, granted, she's at full sprint for a good chunk of it. Like, I'm okay. But still, if she can play an entire basketball game at full blast,
Mhm.
which is what she has said that she could do,
Yeah.
then I don't think that she should be getting tired after, like, that
Yeah.
quickly.
That one. As I said, I understand that she's cross country and it's not on a court and it's through snow and it's cold.
Right. But
Which
also combined with adrenaline. She should have been able to
Right?
run longer.
But then it wasn't terrible far in. She was talking about feeling like what they call it? Cheese lung,
Yeah,
cottage
her
cheese
lung
lung?
cheese.
Lung cheese. And I'm like, already?
Yes.
Which I get. I am not in any way, shape, or form an athlete. I have no idea what those conditions would do. It just did seem odd that someone who's supposed to be in pretty good physical condition would have been struggling so soon.
Right. I'm like, if she's struggling already, then I would have been dead by now. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So, but I did think, other than it being a little too drawn out, that last chase scene was pretty good because it was
Yeah.
just like, here you are, you've got the main character like struggling and pushing on and thinking they're not going to make it, but then something happens and they get some hope, and then every time they look back it's just like this machine coming after
it's
them,
like
you know.
it's Michael Myers.
Yes,
Pretty much. That's what it made me
Yeah.
think of the whole time, because it always said that she was just walking, and all I could picture in my head was just Michael Myers.
Just nonstop coming.
Mhm.
Just, yeah. And so that was kind of creepy. But I did, man, they had okay, this comes back. They had this elk woman in her point of view when it was talking about trains
Mhm.
and how there was a herd memory of when the herd had gotten too close to town because the grass was good and stuff, and the people in the town had seen them and they knew they'd been seen, and that some of the people were coming crouching and following, but the grass was so good and all this. But then they didn't know what these long metal rails were for, but then all of a sudden a train comes through, and from their perspective it's like these rails just came up out of the ground into a wall, and it spooked them with the noise and the rumbling of the ground and all of this, but they couldn't go anywhere because the hunters were on one side, the train was on the other side, and like the majority of this herd was just mowed down, and but some of them escaped, and so there was this herd memory, this generational memory that you don't go near trains. And so when Denner is running away and she knows that there's lake houses at this one lake because her dad had told her a story about it one time. And so she gets to this one kind of farmstead, but it's obviously abandoned. But there's like those storage containers, like rail car storage containers. And she burrows underneath one because I don't know, it was like up on a block or something.
Gosh, that part gave me so much anxiety.
I know, right? They were making a windbreak out of it. And so when she came up the other side, there was this huge snowdrift she had to like get through. But there was 3 of them in a row. And so she wrote, but when she looked back, she could just see that the woman had just stopped on the other side and what it had boiled down to. But her dad, Dinner's dad, had also told her, Gabe, about the train story. And so she knew that she was afraid of those boxcars.
But after she fell back into the snowdrift and had to burrow herself out again, that is the part that gave me the anxiety because it's like claustrophobia times 10. Like you're just stuck. Like she literally like went and drove through the snow thinking she was going to pop right out the other side. But the drift was so thick that she just went like nowhere. And she had to like crawl out. And every time she breathed in, she was breathing in snow.
Dig herself out.
And it's just like, she was just like trying to dig and dig and dig. And finally her arm just reaches through the bank. And I'm like, oh my God.
And then she tries to run and whoop,
yep.
back down again.
And she had to do it all over. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. So anyway, she knows that pretty soon the elk woman will figure out she can go around. But for the moment she's froze, so she takes off again. And she finds Nate. Nate had escaped earlier when Nate had been shot. Did you say this earlier about how he went to the horse pen? Okay, so he got spooked because Gabe was trying to help him once he realized who it was. And because Gabe was covered in blood, Nate was spooked and he went and crawled under the gate into the horse pen, and Gabe thought the horses trampled him. So when Dinner shows up, though, there's no dogs, there's no horses, there's no people. And, well, however it happened, because it's never explained, Dinner finally finds the road that she's been looking for, and she sees this figure on horseback, and it reminds her of that, the last ride image of the Native American slumped over and the horse's head low. And it's Nate on Joe's paint horse. So he survived, somehow got on the horse and was probably trying to figure out what the hell to do. And so they try and get her up on the horse with him, and it doesn't work. And so basically she turns him towards town, slaps him, and says, go find my dad, my stepdad. And then she takes off the other direction. They go again. Yep. Until she almost she almost falls down. She comes to a drop off
cliff,
and she realizes where she's at.
Well, and then because ends up like down, she crosses the road and goes into the forest, and then she falls down a side, like an embankment, and then she ends up still running, and she's in the trench where all of the elk had been 10 years ago.
And spooky imagery, like
all the bones
there, sticking up, and she's like, at first she thought they were like snow spires, but she knows that's not a thing. So
and then she realizes what they really were, and that her dad's story was true. And it was all the elk. And so then she's just crawling into the bones and just laying there.
Yeah.
And Elkhead Woman's showing up, and she's just the Elkhead Woman kind of just stops her chase because she then realizes where she's at.
Yeah.
And she's like now looking for her baby.
She goes looking for her baby's grave.
And the stepdad shows up, the game warden, and starts shooting at Elkhead Lady. And Denera realizes...
But by this time, though, she is dug up.
Oh, yeah, the baby.
The baby, and the baby's alive. It comes to life in her arms. And all along this time, when she was playing ball with Denera, though, she was still human. Like, all looking
Mhm.
human, but her face was kind of melting away.
Yeah, well, because she was losing, she was getting angry.
And so when she was chasing Denera this whole time, she had an elk head.
Yeah, she was getting more and more elk.
Yes. So yeah. So her dad's shooting. He's taking like shots to
Like warning
warning
shots.
shots. And this elk woman just drops down, holds her baby in front of her, and like turns her back to the hunter
Yeah, to protect
and
her
crouches
baby.
over.
And Denner is like, oh, this is supposed to happen. She just wanted her baby and everything's gonna be okay now. And so she tells her stepdad, she's like, no, and uses like the old sign language, and he uses it back
Yeah.
about how like it's
done.
over.
It's done.
And
Yeah.
and that's that.
And it was kind of neat how he ended it. Like it was mixing in like this old grandpa telling the story of the girl and how, it has to end.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, somebody has to decide that they want it to end bad enough to end it. And so if that's what Denera was doing, she was like, this has got to stop. And if he killed her, then 10 years later, she could rise again and just, it would all start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so Denner stops her stepdad from killing her. And he actually lowers and drops his rifle. And at that point, the elk woman turns into an elk. And then she and the baby run off to go find the herd.
Wild, man.
Yeah.
Wild.
And all throughout the book, a lot of parts are kind of interspersed with the type of storytelling that you, at least, I don't know, maybe me as a white person, kind of associate with Native American stories.
Yes.
That kind of traditional storytelling way. And so that's kind of how the book ended. And I really liked that part, those parts. It was neat. Didn't quite understand. I mean, I understood the end and why it happened like it did, but I didn't really understand the whole hand gesture thing. Whatever. I don't know. Well, anyway.
I thought that part was cool.
Well, yeah, but I understand why. Like, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It was just a gesture. It was fine. But yeah, it was a good book. It was a good book.
It was okay.
Really, there was just I ended up on 4 stars.
Okay, that's what I was gonna predict that you would give it.
Yeah, because I love the writing. I love the writing style. I love the dialogue. I love the voices of the characters. I like this, like I just said, some of the storytelling aspects. I liked all of the cultural and heritage references. I liked the way that he put it in there and almost explained it, but did so in a way that it was like just characters talking to each other. I liked the traditional stuff, but then there was also like the modern issues that they have and the way they tell the stories about that. I liked all of that. It was just some aspects of the plot didn't quite work for me. And I don't know why it had to be dinner at the end.
Yeah, that part was, I mean, maybe it's just because it was like one of their calves.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I didn't really like the way that progressed. I think that maybe Elk Woman, could have terrorized Cassidy and Gabe more prior to the sweat,
Mm-hmm.
and then had the sweat be the climax instead of that whole long chase scene. But I do understand how it had to come back to the killing field. But I think maybe that could have been done. I mean, there was just a lot of time spent on the sweat. A lot of time spent there. Mm-hmm. And I really wish there had been some build up to that.
Yeah.
Instead. So I think for me there was some pacing stuff. And I think I almost wish that she had targeted Gabe and Cassidy separately, like she did Ricky and
yeah, I think
Lewis.
That would have been more effective for like causing tension and adding horror to it.
Yeah.
Because both of their deaths happened like relatively quickly.
Mhm.
Especially in
Yeah.
comparison to Lewis. Like we had like almost half the book was Lewis going
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was
And,
just, it went from
I mean,
0 to 100 and
yeah.
nothing flat.
And Gabe was the one that shot first at all of the elk 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that maybe he would have the biggest, like, heart, I guess, maybe. But Lewis was the one that actually shot the elk. So the mother elk.
The mother elk. And it was also, too, in order for her to be reborn, she had to wait until there was a baby for her to be born into. And that unprotected sex in the garage between Lewis and his wife, she did get pregnant. There was a conception there, and that gave her the way. Because prior to that, she was not there for Ricky. That was the herd that did it for her. So there was a lot of references to generational memory in this, and which I kind of thought was really cool too. So I don't know. I think that's it. Just like I said, just dropped a star because there's a lot of things I liked about this book, but the things that I didn't like really did kind of put a kink in it.
Yeah.
Couldn't quite look past some of the stuff. So
yeah. I think if all of it was written in the same style as when we had the Elkhead woman like actually in it, then this book would have definitely been 4 stars for me. Because, and maybe this was his intention, but I was just so confused through Lewis's part. Like, I had no idea what was going on. And maybe that was part of it, because Lewis had no idea what was going on either.
Right. Well, you didn't know.
So, like, there was just so much time that I was spent reading just trying, like, I wasn't really comprehending the story because I didn't know what was actually happening. I don't know.
I do think that was intentional, though,
Maybe.
because
I
didn't know. I didn't know if he was crazy, if he was delusional. I didn't know if there really was a baby elk, or if it was all in his damn head.
I didn't like that, though. I don't like that feeling of being so confused that I don't even know what's going on in the book. Like, I like being, like, I don't know. I like kind of having, like, a little bit in, like, understanding. I don't like books that confuse me, too. They can confuse the characters, but don't confuse me.
Well, anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was good. I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. Because, yeah. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Maybe 3.5. I don't know, but...
I so wanted to give this 5. I really did. But I just was like, I didn't love it.
No.
I liked it a whole lot, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
But I so want to read more books like this. So if you know of other books along this, they don't have to be horror necessarily, but with that kind of mysticism and mythology kind of interwoven into a modern story, indigenous characters, I would love to read it. I'm kind of really hoping that's what our next month's book will do.
What is next month's book? Oof. Not that one. Oof.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oof. Oof. Louise Erdrich, The Sentence. No. Erdrich, The Sentence. It's been a long time since I read this synopsis, but basically it's an indigenous woman who has been in prison. And one of the ways that she got through prison was reading. And so when she's released, she gets a job in a bookstore. And
it's like a dream job right there.
I believe it is set in 1 year, November 1st to November 1st, if I remember right.
Yeah, also
say. And in this bookstore, one of their customers dies in the bookstore. And so the bookstore is haunted for this year.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was a good ghost story.
So I think it is a ghost story. I think it is an indigenous story. I think it is kind of literary along the lines of Stephen Graham Jones's too. So little mystery. So anyway, yeah. I think this will be maybe along the lines of this one. I hope it is. And but anyway, if you have other suggestions, I would love to know. Because I really did enjoy, like I said, the heritage and the mysticism that was going on, and how it's just such a normal, natural part. We're both Catholic. And so there's some mysticism that goes along in the Catholic Church.
Mhm.
But in this day and age, this modern world of ours, if you try and talk about visionaries or
Yeah.
miracles, sometimes people give you the weird side eye, like, really? Are you crazy? A little delusional there.
Mhm.
But so, I kind of get that. And so it's really, sometimes we can only talk about those things with each other because we understand it.
Yeah.
And so I get that. And I liked it being such a normal part. It's not like it was part of the story, but it was like characters having to convince other characters that it's real.
Right. They just so readily accepted that this reincarnation and all of it could be happening.
Yeah.
And that was just wild to me.
Yeah. Like, there was no explanation about why there was an elk-headed woman running around. It just was.
Yeah.
It just was.
Yeah.
So
I actually had a conversation like this with my dad and brother the other night because we were talking about like haunted places and how Native American land tends to have a little bit more on the like haunting side, like a lot of things. And there was like this YouTube channel that had gone out hunting for SWs with some Native Americans. And they actually, their tribe had like, they would go send boys off to be trained as SW hunters and stuff, and like how to like treat people with herbs and things like that. Like, it was just mind blowing to me. And like before they went out, they did like a whole ceremony and like they just believed it so hardcore. And I'm like, you cannot convince me that these things are not real, because anything dealing with like,
if you don't know what an SW is, the first word is skin. Go look it up.
You probably could just type in SWs and it would come.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, I'm like a little superstitious with it.
The Morbid podcast calls them flesh pedestrians. So you can go look that up too.
Yeah. But it's just wild, the stuff that, because Wendigos are part of that too. And I fully believe in those as well. Like, I don't know. It's just we
don't know everything, people. We don't know everything. So I did appreciate that as far as being in the book, that it was just accepted. And this is not a fantasy book,
Right,
you expect that in a fantasy book. But it's just their heritage and their culture and their
really
beliefs.
Did like that aspect of
and
it.
Like I said, I hate to say this as a white person, but I related to that in a way because of our faith. And some of the things involved in our faith are the same way. I can talk to another Catholic about Padre Pio and not have him side-eye me and think, it's not real, And we have this discussion because it's completely normal within our faith for these things to happen. So I as much as a white person can say she relates, I did to some extent, but I liked it a lot. I really did like it. Quite a bit. So, yeah.
I didn't like it as much as I wanted to, but it was still good. So I definitely think that it's one to read.
I can relate to that as well, because I really wanted to give it 5 stars. I really did. For the cultural stuff alone, I really wanted to give it 5 stars, but I just couldn't get there. But that's okay. That's okay. Good book, though. Definitely a good book.
Nailing it with the book club choices this year.
We are not too shabby.
I mean, not to toot our own horn or anything.
Well, if you don't talk about last month.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about last month.
Last month didn't happen.
That was an outlier.
But all the others have been pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Good read for October.
Yeah, definitely. I understand why this was a top horror book contender for all the award and everything. Like,
yeah.
The gore is not lost on this book.
Nope.
There's the scene where Denera comes to the sweat, like for real, comes there, and the bodies are in the sinking pit.
Oh, because the elk woman had drugged them all into the lodge
The
and set it on
dogs
fire.
and the bodies and all of it just there,
Set
and
it on
Denra
fire.
falls into the
No,
pile
why?
of it.
Why did she not put Victor in there too?
I don't know.
She left Victor in the outhouse.
Yeah, just so Victor could die twice. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know.
It needed that distraction so that way Denra could get away.
Well, I know why it needed to happen, but
Yeah.
again, one of those things like, why wasn't Victor burned up too?
Yeah.
I mean, Nate obviously escaped with the horses, but
anyway, that's The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I definitely am going to be reading more from him. In fact, I have My Heart is a Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper.
And I was right.
Final
girl.
Okay. Someone else was talking about that book too by him, and
we were talking about Final Girl books in our last. What were we talking about?
The Riley Sager.
The Riley Sager books about how you like Final Girl books, and I said he's got one. I know he does.
Yeah.
It is the Final Girl. Is what his is. So
give him a read. Maybe he's going to be the next author I read all the books from.
Well, I tell you. If you're looking for, I know Riley Sager's supposed to be just thriller, and this is obviously more horror.
This is horror.
But for thrilling, I was more scared
in
this book than I was with any of those other books.
100%.
So.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So anyway, like we already said, November's book is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. So read along with us. Please join us.
The live stream will be on
December
3rd.
December 3rd is when we will be discussing this book. And again, we apologize if you've been chatting with us. We probably should have mentioned again as we went along, but we lost our chat box. And so we apologize. And if any of you have made comments, we'll answer them below. But thank you for joining in and being with us today.
Yeah.
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 That. It's your turn.
Oh gosh.
If you like this video.
Oh yeah. If you like this. We're doing away with the whole end outro.
Oh, were we gonna do away with it? Okay.
I mean, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you gotta tell people.
That's true.
What to do and like join and stuff. You
Because
gotta do it. It's like a requirement of a channel.
Okay. I will do it then.
Do it.
If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. That way we know that you enjoy chatting with us and hearing all of our talks and everything about books. Whether you give it a thumbs up or not, we're gonna keep doing it. But we like to know that that you are enjoying it as well. If you're not already subscribed, go on down below the video, hit that red subscribe button so you can see our beautiful faces every Sunday with a book video. I was gonna say a time, but you know, time is relative.
In the afternoon.
Yeah, it's Sunday afternoons typically.
In the afternoon.
Yes. And if you are wanting even more content, you can now go to the channel homepage and join the channel memberships. There's 3 different levels you can join. You can get early access to the videos, extra members only videos that you will not find anywhere else on the channel, and also live streams. So don't want to miss out on any of that. Go enjoy.
Yes. Okay.
Yay.
Yay. Now we don't know what to do because if we do away with the part that I used to do, then now we don't know how to end it.
Well, now you have to say your part because I said my part.
We need a script now.
Yep.
Well, my part is be sure and go check out the rest of Amy's channel because obviously the book content is where it's at, but she does have a lot of other things like fashion and travel and shopping. And since spooky season is just now past us, there's a whole bunch of videos if you want to go and relive your spooky season. She's got lots of videos on transformations of her house. She also has home renovations. If that is not enough for you, and why would it be, really, she has a blog as well, where she has all kinds of different articles. Some go along with the videos, some don't. So go be sure and check that out too.
Kind of ominous.
I know. And become a part of the Everyday Adventurers family. Yeah. Now I'm done.
Look at us go. Well, anyway, I think that's all that we have for this video today. Hopefully. Yeah.
I hope you had fun.
Yeah,
We hope you
enjoyed it.
Have you read this book? What did you think of this book? Did you like this book? Do you have recommendations for other books like it?
Down
Let
in
us
the
know.
comments. But anyway, like I said, hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. And I'm Amy.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are
The Everyday Epic.
We'll see y'all in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.